What if perfectionism isn't something to fix, but something to understand? Because perfectionism is just a survival response. It's a protective mechanism designed to help you literally survive. Welcome to this series where we go from survival to self-leadership, where you're gonna learn how to go from surviving from all of those survival responses to leading yourself with trust, with conviction, with truth, with alignment, with compassion, and so much openness. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, I highly suggest watching those 2 videos. So the other 2 parts were about indecision and people pleasing. I'm gonna leave them here because they're gonna help bring together this survival series. So today I wanted to speak about perfectionism. What are the psychological mechanisms behind it? What is it exactly? Where it comes from, how to navigate it, and some personal examples from my own life. If you don't know me, hi, my name is Chrisana. I'm basically a psychological life coach. If you've been here before, welcome back. And yeah, let's get into the video. So I wanted to start with the explanation of perfectionism. So perfectionism, according to psychology, is when we set extremely high and unrealistic standards for ourselves or for others. And that creates a lot of pressure within ourselves and within our relationships. So perfectionism is a trait that makes life feel like being on a treadmill that never stops. No matter how far you've come, it goes on and on and on, like forever. And so in today's video, I wanted to speak about the unhealthy version of perfectionism, because there is also the healthy version that help us to accomplish our goals and achieve our potential. And the unhealthy version is the one that I just described, being on this treadmill, being on this non-stop treadmill, stuck in the cycle of not feeling enough as you are. Because it goes so much deeper than just a behavioral or a personality trait. And so in its unhealthy version, perfectionism, it's like a compass that points towards growth. But this compass perpetuates the belief of not feeling enough, as we are right now. That's why I said I'm gonna speak about the unhealthy version, because there's nothing wrong with growing and having a growth mindset. But there is a fine line between perfectionism and having a growth mindset, right? And the difference is that with growth mindset, you feel enough as you are. You just wanna better yourself because you know you can achieve more things in life. You don't have this constant hunger, like constantly working on your goals. You rest. You have time for your loved ones. You allow yourself to take some days off. And perfectionism is more of creating perfection through control in every area of your life. You don't allow anything to fall off your radar. It's not only about work, it extends to other areas in our lives. So that's why we could say that perfectionism is a protective mechanism disguised as ambition. It's like swimming in an endless ocean without any boat, without any island to rest, without anything in it. You just swim and swim and swim. It's never ending. So when we say perfectionism is related to having unrealistically high standards, let me give you an example. So I think around 6 years ago, I decided to start drawing again since childhood. And while I was trying to draw, I was not only not enjoying it, I was actively hating the whole process. Like when I say hating, even though I knew I liked drawing. And that was because while I was trying to draw anything at all, I didn't allow myself to make mistakes. I didn't allow myself to enjoy this experimentation. I had this voice in my head speaking to me extremely harshly. Like it would say to me, why would you do that? Who do you think you are? It's gonna be so ugly. Wow, that's embarrassing. Why would you do that? That's why usually perfectionism comes with his best friend, the inner critic. And it perpetuates this cycle, right? I'm not enough to draw. I should be perfect in everything. I cannot enjoy my hobby. That didn't allow me space to even try, to be in this childlike curiosity. I was my worst hater, genuinely. It took me around a year, but I healed it. And in that process of healing it, I found myself being so much more open, like I used to be as a child, right? Bringing back that sense of curiosity, of play, of fun, allowing myself to pursue hobbies and activities in life that I might suck at first. I might be really, really terrible at first. And that's okay. It's okay to be bad at things. That's how we start something. And this whole perfectionism trap reinforces not only the inner critic within us, but also procrastination, thinking that if we don't do something the perfect way, like there's a perfect way to do things, we shouldn't even try. We shouldn't even allow ourselves to try. Besides that, we start comparing ourselves to others, right? How would this person draw better than me, even though they haven't tried themselves in years too? So that's why it takes away from us the joy of participating in new activities or hobbies. And again, speaking to yourself like you wouldn't speak to a friend. So this inner critic, right? If you experience that, let me know in the comments. I suspect you wouldn't be here if you haven't, but yeah, I would love to know your experience. For me, one thing that really, really helped me with perfectionism is that I allowed myself to be perfect, or rather try my best and strive for the best of my abilities in the things that are my priorities in this phase of my life. So allowing myself to be incredibly messy in other areas of my life and being really type A with the things that matter to me right now, but not to confuse it with not making mistakes or not allowing myself to make mistakes, but just being in this space of I want to put a lot of attention and care to it. So using the healthy version of perfectionism for me in this season of my life is pouring a lot into my clients, pouring a lot into creating content for you guys. I love creating videos. I really want to provide you with the best insights in psychology and all of my experiences. Yeah, allowing myself to be type A in this area of my life, but not in other areas. I can be as messy as I want in other areas. So now I would like to shift gears. A lot of people think that others will value them more if they are perfect. And that couldn't be further from the truth. That is not being said enough. That's why I wanted to bring that up. When we are perpetuating this flawless image, whether that's in our relationships, in our career, anything, any area, we are not allowing connection in our lives. We are not allowing emotional intimacy in our lives. And that is because no human is perfect. We are all flawed, right? And so when we are creating a flawless image, maybe we're showcasing that, we are putting this mask, right, of perfectionism to our dates, to our families, to our new friends, to our new colleagues, anything. We are not allowing connection to be created because humans connect through humanity, through being vulnerable. And when we are creating this flawless, this fake image, right, we cannot be vulnerable at the same time. So because we are creating this fake person and we are performing through perfectionism, other people cannot relate to us. And that's why this doesn't allow truthful and meaningful relationships, because perfectionism perpetuates this fake flawless image of ourselves, and that's not relatable. So here's the thing, even though through perfectionism we are trying to connect to others through performing, right, this is what we learned in childhood, and I'm gonna get into that in a bit, we're actually disconnecting from other people, just like with people pleasing. And that's why it's a survival strategy. It creates disconnection through perceived connection. That's not actually truthful connection. So what's behind perfectionism? What's the root of perfectionism? So the root of perfectionism can be found in our childhood wounds, and that is usually through shame, for having an unmet need for love, for acceptance, for affection, because probably in childhood you were shamed for who you truly were, for who you truly are under all of those layers. And when you were shamed, you adapted to survive. And you did that to be loved by your parents in some kind of way, even if that love was conditional, because that love wasn't based on who you truly are as your unique self. And so you adapted. And what did you do? You started performing. You started creating this perfect, flawless image, trying to do things in a certain way in order to create some sort of connection with your caregivers, right? Even though that connection was conditional. It wasn't based on unconditional love. And that created also this fear of failure, because if you fail being perfect, you might not be loved anymore, right? Because in our subconscious minds, through this perfectionist mechanism, the belief that is ingrained is if we fail, we might not be loved, accepted, or worthy of all of that. And so we keep on with this mask. We keep using this mask of perfectionism again and again and again, even though it doesn't give us true acceptance, love, and affection. That's exactly where the inner critic takes place, because it doesn't allow us to not be perfect. It takes this place of being an ally to perfectionism. And because shame creates trauma and trauma creates shame, there's a lot of shame in that, a lot of shame in not being able to be who you truly are and accepted for that. That leads to trauma. This is chronic. So it leads to developmental trauma. And of course, low self-worth. And the other belief that is created from this childhood experience is that I have to take control, because if I don't, everything will fall apart. So this creates a fear of what if everything will be swept away? What if everything will be taken away from me? The job, the family, the partner, the material things, even those internal resources you might have created for yourself. What if you don't take control of the situation? What will happen then? And when we are constantly grasping for control of the outcome, for control of the situation, for anything, in order maybe to avoid possible or imaginable harm or avoid mistakes, we are ripping away joy from our lives. That's why perfectionism rips away inner peace and joy from our lives, because it is trying to grasp tightly into controlling the outcomes, into expecting specific results and only wanting that result. And that also creates so much overwhelm, anxiety, and this spiral thinking. What if I lose my job? What if I don't make enough money? What if I don't have the children? What if I don't find the partner? What if I don't make it in life? What if I don't make my dreams come true? And this is also what's behind the fear of failure. We are striving to control for success. That's why perfectionism leads to burnout or quitting, because when you do that, you're putting so much on your plate that if you would to eat that, you would pass out. You cannot handle that amount of food. So it leads to burnout or avoidance and procrastination. You cannot eat all of this food, right? So you're either gonna stuff yourself and then pass out, or you're gonna avoid and leave the room. And that brings me to my next point, to the physiology of perfectionism. If you watch my other videos, you might already know that our nervous system activates the sympathetic activation when we are undergoing a big threat, which might be trauma or a big wound. So the four responses that can be activated is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. In terms of perfectionism, fight and fleeing is activated. So when we are grasping for control, like we just discussed, when we are trying to showcase power or dominance through over control or perfectionism, we are in fighting mode. This is the response that is activated. And when we're fleeing in terms of perfectionism, we're trying to avoid a situation or escape by staying busy, right? When you have a task and you rather do anything other than doing that task. Maybe you start cleaning the room, washing the dishes, and all of that kind of stuff. This way, the flight response is connected to busyness, to excessive planning, and to rushing. All of those responses are activated created to keep us safe. Because in our system, perfectionism was created in order to protect us, in order to keep us alive, in order to have some sort of connection with our caregivers. So it's only wise for our nervous system to keep us safe. It gets activated because perfectionism was linked to create safety. And because not being perfect was ingrained into your subconscious and into your nervous system as being a threat. Being flawless meant being a threat. Being flawless was not safe anymore. Being a human and messy was not safe anymore. Underneath that nervous system response is a deep underlying need for love, for affection, for acceptance, and to be seen as we truly are. To be seen as we are underneath all of that performing perfectionistic masks. So how can you navigate perfectionism? What can you do to deal with it and heal it in this area of your life or in this season of your life? The first step, and that might be contrary to popular belief, is to allow it to be there, to befriend it, to not try to get rid of it or try to remove it. Literally befriend it, start talking to it like a friend. What is behind perfectionism? What is this trying to show you? What's underneath it? Be curious. Allow yourself to experience curiosity around perfectionism. And this way you are integrating perfectionism. You are not trying to suppress part of you, because when we're suppressing is only when that part of us it's trying to control by taking the whole power of ourselves, of our whole system. And integration happens when we allow this part of ourselves to be seen, to be understood, to be allowed. And this way, this part, because it's being seen right now, it gives us space to be as we truly are. And this way we are not allowing it to take the hand wheel. We, as our true selves, we are taking the hand wheel and we are driving. We are the driving force in our lives, not perfectionism. Second, and this is one of my favorite practices, is mindfulness practice. Basically, the more we practice mindfulness, the more compassion and acceptance we can have for ourselves. The truth is, compassion and acceptance is the only antidote to self-criticism, because self-criticism comes hand in hand with perfectionism. So by allowing space for compassion and acceptance, we are giving a bit less space to the inner critic. Even though we can give it space, just like perfectionism, to understand it firstly, but then we need to introduce a bit of acceptance and compassion into our lives. Another thing you can do is experimentation. So just like we discussed in terms of physiology, that our bodies, our nervous system learned that perfectionism is the response to the threat, to the perceived threat. We can showcase to our bodies that it is safe to be a bit messy. It is safe to be a bit raw. It is safe to be imperfect. So let's say you're not allowing yourself in your workspace to show your true personality a bit more. So maybe you don't share your hobbies or you don't share any sort of personal aspect of yourself because you consider it as being unprofessional. So by allowing yourself to share a bit of information, I'm not talking about trauma dumping here. Maybe what music you like to listen, or maybe what movies or books you're consuming right now, anything sort of that nature. And when you are sharing that with your colleagues, by being met with safety and understanding, you are reinforcing into your belief system and showcasing to your body, to your nervous system, that it's safe to be imperfect, that it's safe to be flawed, that it's safe to be unprofessional in your workspace. And that might look like so different for every single one of us. So you have to be your own investigator and find what is perfectionism to you, what is performance to you, so you can show what is not and that it's safe for your body. Last but not least is healing this childhood wound of grasping for control, asking yourself or journaling it. What are the ways you grasp for control in your childhood? And what did you gain from that? Did you gain validation from your caregivers? Maybe it was striving for good grades and then you learn to be career oriented. What is it for you? When we find that out, it creates so much awareness around our own individual patterns. And when we have awareness, we can basically heal the wound. We can do the work. we can actually create a new pattern. And only with awareness we can create new patterns. Without it, we cannot move on. At the same time, we don't want to be stuck in being just aware. We want to move on this energy. We want to do something with it. So what are the ways you can integrate that into your life? So what are the ways you can leave behind the old pattern of perfectionism by creating a new pattern of being more of your multidimensional self? If you want to go deeper into this kind of work, Metamorphosis, my 6-month psychological coaching container, is the perfect way to dive deeper, untangle all of those patterns, understand what's behind it, rewire it if it's needed, create a new response, a new desired response, and leading yourself with curiosity, with compassion, with clarity, with acceptance, and so much trust within yourself. If that sparks something within you, I will leave the link down below. And yeah, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments, how are you going to release a bit of that perfectionism and allow more space for your true self to breathe into existence. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye.